Have you ever had that feeling of being surrounded by everything and at the same time by nothing? Of looking around and seeing so much stuff but still feeling an emptiness you can't explain? You wake up, you go through life, you do what needs to be done. But at the end of the day, you don't feel like anything has really changed. Just another day passing like so many others. A heavy mind, a full house, time always short, and the feeling that life is slipping through the cracks. The question here isn't what you have. It's how much of you all that stuff has. You might not have realized it yet, but your peace might be slowly being drained by little things. That drawer you avoid opening, the shelf that bothers you without saying a word, the routine that seems to swallow your energy automatically. And in the middle of all this, there's a name that starts to echo more and more: Japanese minimalism. But I need to tell you something right away. Japanese minimalism isn't an aesthetic. It's also not a passing fad. It's not about living with white wood and plants, and it definitely has nothing to do with living in emptiness. It's much deeper than that. It's a choice, a silent positioning in the face of the avalanche of excess, a subtle, almost invisible, but extremely potent message. I choose to live with less because I want to feel more. Have you ever stopped to notice how we've been distancing ourselves from what's essential? And I'm not talking about objects. I'm talking about space, about presence, about silence. Japanese minimalism has something that few approaches have. It understands the value of what isn't seen, that pause, the absence of noise, the space between one thing and another. They call this ma, and ma isn't a pretty concept to put in a photo caption. It's the air between moments, the interval between one thought and another. It's what makes life breathe. Can you see how suffocated we are inside? By everything we've accumulated without realizing it, by the decisions you've put off, by the clothes you don't wear, but keep, by the memories that no longer fit, but you insist on storing in the form of clutter. The accumulation screams, but so does the silence. The difference is that one demands something of you, the other heals you. And maybe you're waiting for a big moment to start, a turning point, a perfect Monday, but I'll tell you, start with the drawer, with a corner, with a broken glass you keep for no reason, with the shelf where you can't see anything anymore. 3 questions. Does this bring me joy? Do I really use this? Does this belong in this place? And from answer to answer, you start to clean up what you didn't even know was weighing you down. There's no single script to do this. Each person will have their own path, but there's a common feeling that starts to emerge in the middle of this process. Clarity. Not that logical, mental clarity, but an emotional clarity, a relief, a lightness that doesn't come from what you bought, but from what you let go of. You don't need to live in Japan to understand what all this means. You don't need to learn Japanese or follow rigid rules. You just need to look more carefully at what already surrounds you. Understand that your house reflects your head, and that cleaning a space is often cleaning a pain. Organizing a drawer can mean organizing an anguish. Throwing something away can be the symbol of something you needed to let go of a long time ago. There's one thing no one tells you. Joy doesn't come from the new, it comes from the simple. And the simple isn't the basic. The simple is what makes sense. Sometimes it's an old notebook that still inspires you, a single object that has real value, a lighter routine with less rush. The simple is what remains when the excess goes away. You don't need to change everything. You just need to ask yourself what is actually making sense, and have the courage to listen to the answer. And if you feel that something inside is asking for a pause, or space for silence, maybe what you're looking for isn't an answer. Maybe it's just the beginning of a new relationship with what's already yours, but in a different way, a lighter way, a more honest way, a more you way. Have you ever noticed how your home is connected to your head? How sometimes what's around you starts to speak louder than your own thoughts? You look at the environment where you live, and without realizing it, you become more impatient, more tired, more irritated with everything. But the problem never seems to be the space. It's always the routine, the work, the others, the time. And even so, when you get home, you feel like you're still carrying something heavy, even without knowing what. What you may not have seen yet is that it's not about the quantity of things, but how much those things take from you. Your energy goes away in small details that you think are not important. What you left for later, what you kept out of pity, what you kept out of fear, and then everything starts to occupy more than it should. More space, more time, more presence, until the air seems thin, as if you had nowhere to breathe within your own life. And it is at this point that Japanese minimalism appears, but not as a beautiful style of decoration, nor as a set of cold rules. It emerges as an answer to something deeper, more silent, that has been growing inside you for a long time, a discomfort that you don't know how to name, an urgency to empty. But not just any emptying. It's a specific type, the type that allows you to feel again. You don't need a perfect life, you just need a life that fits you. And what Japanese minimalism does is precisely that. It gives you backspace, but not only the physical space, the internal one too. Because when you choose to remove what no longer serves, you start to make room for things that you didn't even remember you needed. Peace, clarity, connection. It's strange how we accept living in the middle of noise. We normalize the rush, the excess, the mess, as if all this were part of the package, as if there were no other way. And then you go through life in a way that is not yours, carrying what does not belong to you, until one day you stop and look, and you begin to realize that there is a huge amount of things that never made sense, but you kept, out of habit, out of tiredness, for not knowing where to start changing. And maybe you think that starting is difficult, that it's complicated, that it needs time, energy, disposition. But that's not the point. The point is that you need to choose, because what keeps you in the same place is not the difficulty. It's the fear of letting go. It's the fear of emptiness. And I understand that, because emptiness scares. It seems that when you take away the excess, there is a silence left that you don't know how to deal with. But it is exactly in that silence that you will find yourself. Japanese minimalism does not ask you to give up everything. It invites you to observe more carefully, to ask yourself honestly what still makes sense, what has purpose, what still represents you. And the most difficult, what you are keeping only for fear of letting go. Clarity doesn't come from outside. It comes the moment you choose to really look. And when you start looking, you realize that what weighs you down is not just the physical mess, it's the emotional one. It's the expectations, the demands, the roles you took on without realizing it. It's everything that has been piling up inside you until the moment it overflows. And then maybe you're asking yourself, where do I start? How do I apply this in a real, possible way within my routine? The answer is simple but not comfortable. You start when you stop running away from what bothers you. There is no right way. There is your way. What matters is that it is honest, that it is born from your truth and not from the attempt to copy an idealized model. Look around. Choose a corner, an object, a space that you have been avoiding for a while, and ask yourself, does this still have real value, or is it just here because I didn't have the courage to let go? And observe what you feel when you think about getting rid of it, because the feeling that comes tells you much more than the object itself. It shows what you are still holding on to emotionally. There is a difference between what is essential and what is habit. A lot of what you keep you don't even want anymore, but it's there because it's always been there. And Japanese minimalism is about breaking with that, not to live with little, but to live with truth. And that truth begins to appear when you stop hiding behind the accumulation. You may think that you can't handle letting go, that it's difficult, that it's tiring, that you won't be able to. But the most exhausting thing is to continue living in the middle of excess. That's what exhausts. Because every time you enter a full environment, your mind also fills up. It overloads trying to cope with everything. And then you feel that you never have time, that you never have energy, that you can never breathe. But it's not the time, it's the volume, the weight, the silent disorder that spreads. The beauty of Japanese minimalism is in showing you that there is possible lightness, that you don't have to live running over yourself inside, that there is another way to be in life, a smoother, more present, more conscious way, not to run away from problems, but to face them with less distraction. Because excess distracts, and when you take away what is not essential, what matters finally appears. Have you realized how everything has become faster, louder, fuller? How things seem to be always in motion, but you remain still within yourself? What if you could pause? What if instead of trying to fit into the rhythm of the world, you created your own? This is the provocation of Japanese minimalism. It doesn't come to impose a new standard on you. It gives you back the right to choose. You don't need much to feel alive. You need meaning. You need space. You need presence. And all this begins when you decide that you no longer want to live pushing life with your belly. When you understand that having less is just the way. The real goal is to have more clarity, more intention, more truth. From the moment you allow yourself to question what surrounds you, everything changes. Not explosively, but like a breeze that cleans little by little. One drawer at a time, a more aligned choice, a day when you feel that something has become lighter. And then you begin to realize that this light is what you have always sought, but did not know where to find. And it's not about turning your house into an empty and cold space. It's about making it reflect who you are now, not who you were, not who you thought you needed to be, but who you are in the present. And that takes courage, courage to let go. Courage to listen to yourself. Courage to change what no longer talks to your truth. You have been carrying much more than you need, and the most difficult thing is not realizing this. It is accepting, because accepting implies acting. It implies opening space, and space sometimes scares, but it also heals, because when you empty, silence appears, and in the beginning it bothers, but then it reveals. It shows what was lost in the middle of the noise. It shows what really matters. It's not about things, it never was. It's about you, about how you have been feeling, about what you have been keeping, about what you are willing to let go of to finally feel more clearly again. Japanese minimalism is not an end, it is a path. And perhaps this path is already beginning there, at the exact moment when you begin to look around and ask yourself, what still makes sense here? And what is no longer part of my story? You arrived here for a reason. Maybe you don't know exactly what. Maybe you just felt that something inside you asked for silence, a type of pause. Not that uncomfortable silence, but the one that seems to clean, that does not demand. That is just there saying, now it's just you. And it is at this point that Japanese minimalism touches. It doesn't come to convince you of anything. It comes as an invitation. A direct invitation, almost hard but true. A type of calm confrontation with what you have been ignoring. And that's why it moves so much, because it doesn't shout but forces you to listen. And then you start to feel things that have been stopped for too long. You don't need to understand everything now. You just need to accept that the accumulation is not doing you good. That maybe you have become accustomed to hiding behind the excess. That the full shelves, the followed commitments, the rushed days, all this seems part of life. But when you stop, you begin to realize that there is another possibility, and it is not perfect, but it is real. Have you ever thought about what your home would be like if it only had what really matters? Have you ever thought about what it would be like to wake up and not feel visual or emotional weight? Have you ever thought about what it would be like to walk through a space where everything has presence, but does not occupy more than it should? It's not about decoration, it's about health, it's about emotional, it's about presence. Only this doesn't happen from the outside in. There's no point in trying to copy the Japanese style without understanding why. There's no point in imitating without feeling, because Japanese minimalism starts inside. It starts when you have the courage to look at yourself and see everything that has been accumulated, not only in the drawers, but in the memories, in the choices, in the excuses. It's about letting go of what no longer represents you, and that requires a type of courage that does not appear, that is not praised, that is not exhibited, but that transforms. And then comes one of the most difficult parts, which is sustaining the emptiness. Because when you take away, space appears. And what do you do with this space? Do you fill it again? Can you handle the silence? Do you listen to what arises in it? The that essential concept within Japanese minimalism is that it's the interval, the space between things, not to look pretty, but so that you feel the value of what remains. This is what changes everything. When you no longer need much to feel that you have enough, your life can be lighter than you imagine. But this lightness will not arrive alone. It comes when you decide that you no longer want to feel suffocated, when you recognize that there is excess, and that behind it there is pain, there is resistance, there is attachment, and the only way to cross this is going to the end. It's not fast, it's not easy, but it's liberating. You may think that you need more time, more energy, a right moment, but what you really need is a turning point, something that makes you leave the place. Not a huge step, a small gesture. Choose an object and ask, does this still say something about me? Does this still have a function? Does this still have truth? And the answer, as simple as it may seem, can change everything. Because it's not about the object, it's about what it represents. And here's the truth nobody likes to face. You already know what's weighing you down. You're just avoiding it. You already know what should go, what should be re-evaluated, what's no longer part of who you are. But for some reason, you hold on. And holding on is exhausting. Holding on drains you. Holding on postpones. The life you want won't arrive by chance. It will arrive when you stop accumulating what you no longer live, when you start looking with sincerity, when you do less, but with more intention, when you choose the simple, not the empty, the simple, the necessary, the essential. And if at this moment you're feeling a kind of relief mixed with discomfort, that's the beginning, that's the sign. Because discomfort comes before change. And if something inside you stirred, if something resonated, then you're already on the path. You don't need to know how it will be. You just need to continue, one space at a time, one gesture at a time, one choice that respects how you feel now. Share this blessed video so that it can touch and help other people like you and me. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for being part of our faith community. If you would like to support our channel a little more, please consider becoming a channel member. I'll leave 2 more videos here so you can continue your search. Thank you, and God bless you all. See you later.